Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review, and check out my YouTube channel and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast. And now your host, Micah Chrisman.
Hello, welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast, where we explore art, community, spirituality, and our cosmic significance/insignificance. Today, we're going to be exploring all of the deep topical things related to health, wellness, and personal development with our friend Jessica. Jessica Horton is known as Jess. She's a certified health and wellness coach, personal trainer, and photographer with a passion for creating lasting memories through the Tin Roof Studio Photo and Coaching Co. since 1998. Her journey into wellness began with overcoming personal challenges like Crohn's disease and lifestyle depression, leading her to obtain certifications as a wellness coach and personal trainer. She's dedicated about 3.5 years to supporting patients and medical teams, emphasizing sustainable changes and guiding individuals towards balanced lifestyles. Alongside her coaching work, Jessica finds solace in nature and aims to extend its connection opportunities through BondFire, which is her creating portable campfires and rituals. We want to learn more about that here in a little bit. She excels in uncovering root causes and fostering connections within herself and others. A single mother of 3, she values discipline, spirituality, and authenticity, grounding her approach to coaching and life in general. Jess, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. That was quite an intro. That was a lot. I'm a lot.
You are a lot. You are amazing in all the things.
Hearing all that, I was like, whoa.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just learned when people ask me like what I do, I always am so scared of that question because I'm like, depends on the day. But I just learned the term serial entrepreneur, and I was like,
oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I was like, I guess that's what I am. I don't know.
You'll be like, just take a seat for a second. I just need 2 seconds, 30 seconds of your time.
Yeah. Like, what are you interested in? Because I got it all. No, not everything. Anyway, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So how we met was I was a participant in her all the things, everythingness of her life coaching. That was with Spire Care, and that was in Kansas City right before I moved. And it was just something that they offered me. I remember going for just a regular, blood work routine, check-in. Told them I was like, well, I'm trying to be healthier and I'm trying to make better choices. And then they were like, well, actually, we have this person who has, she's on staff and does all this life coaching. She can help you with set some goals. And so we only had a real brief brush of connection, probably about 3-ish months, 4 months maybe. And it was really transformative for me because I was about to move to Asheville, North Carolina. And I was kind of telling her well, I'm pretty sure even when I first met you, I was like, well, I'm thinking about going. And then somewhere in the middle, I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure I'm starting to make changes. I'm going to go. And then towards the last month and a half, I'm like, oh, I'm leaving and I need help.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make this life leap. And you were just really strategic in a lot of that. And so I was like, yeah, I was glad we connected afterwards, just on social media. And I just wanted to be able to, have you share some of your kind of philosophy, life approach, and how you try to help people like you helped me. And I shared with her just some tangible things that helped me, which was just practices that I instilled just before I moved here, as far as developing my own personal rituals of now I do reading about 30 minutes at night before I kind of watch TV or what have you. It was when we started, it was I had lunch breaks, proper lunch breaks. My current job we don't do lunch breaks. We just work through lunch. It's absurd. Anyways, I won't get into that. But it was
talk about that.
originally, when I had a job that I could have lunch breaks, I would like while I was eating lunch, instead of just watching YouTube, I would do some reading. I don't know. That's just it's a small facet, but really, you helped me just kind of process like, how do I overcome fears and triggers and like set up new life patterns so that way when I move here, I don't just fall into the same ruts,
Mhm.
because we talked a lot about how like wherever you move, there you are. And the
Right.
problems that you carry with you or the patterns that you follow, they will go with you. And I'm not perfect. I still have a lot of things I'm still trying to find growth and routine. And
Mhm.
but you helped me like I wrote down like my weekly schedule and like what I was going to focus on. And yeah, it was just a transformational kind of approach to helping me process the whole transition. And so thanks for being on the show and thanks for helping me with that.
Yeah, I love that, and I love hearing that. I remember it may have been a little bit before you attempted or decided to move, because I think you were like, well, I think there was some things that we coached around a little bit before that, and it kind of transitioned into, hey, I think I'm going to move, because we talked about like environmental changes, like how your
Hmm.
environment impacts even some of those beliefs and habits that you have, right? And like,
Yeah.
and then just do that. So I love that what we worked on has carried through, and it sounds like that you're still have those pieces in place, but also still working on others.
Yeah. And like
Yeah.
for me, it was like, the first 2 months, it was like hunting for a place to live,
Mhm.
getting a new job because like other job stuff had just fallen through. I was supposed to work remotely. And so just like a lot of life chaos that my other friends have given me a lot of solace and just like, hey, Micah, don't worry. It took me 2 years to like do what you've done in 6 months, like
Yeah.
get established, get a new job that like you're feeling like solidified in, meeting new friends, and just like, make me feel confident. They're like, oh, like when I lost my other job, they were just like, oh, good for you, Micah. Like I'm just like, what the hell? And they're like, no, no, you're doing this is exactly how it goes. Like you're cutting the ties, like you're the lifeboats, so to
Mhm.
speak,
Yeah.
and you're just like transitioning into the new phase of life. And like they're like, oh, this is very expedited. Like this is it all goes to shit when you first make a big transition like this, and you're just getting it all out of the way.
Well, I think that when you put it out there, like into the universe, that you are wanting to make those changes, right?
Yeah.
Things align, and it does. If it's meant for you, it happens as quickly as it should. The doors just open and you just fall through them, even if you might not be like 100% ready for it. But
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was my folks or somebody said that like, you made the right choice when you start to like, yeah, like essentially go against the grooves or the ruts of life and like all of a sudden everything's going to shit and it's really tough. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm probably on the right track.
Yeah,
I'm kind
I
of
love
steering I'm steering through some mud now, like it's gonna be okay. And so I've had to like I've been practicing meditation in the mornings. Like I said, it's getting somewhat to a regular routine, but like, just some centering practices that I wasn't doing before we had met. And that was like, just like you said, like sometimes you're just like letting life happen to
that.
you
Mhm.
versus like participating and being proactive in how you are approaching your day. And so for me, changing my environment did initiate that. Like, okay, like it's gonna be tough. I could just keep going to doing the same shit that I've always done.
Mhm.
But by being in a new place, it's like, okay, I'm actually trying to participate in who Micah wants to become. And that's still becoming. So Jess, tell us who have you been becoming?
Right.
What
Oh my gosh,
take
I want
us
to ask you so many questions. I was like, this
well, we talked about it, how this is like role reversal. Like this is like I would come to the office and sit with you and you would be like, all right, Micah, let's like look at your
is.
notes or let's debrief what's been happening the last, couple weeks.
Yeah.
And now I get to ask you, all right, what's been happening the last like, I don't know, 6 months since the last time we saw each other in person?
Yeah. When did you move exactly? In August?
September is
August,
like right when I
September.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get an apartment here till October, but I count myself that I moved here in September because I came to like look for a place and then I flew home and got my
Yeah.
stuff and
All the stuff.
all the jazz. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it has been about 6 months. So be careful what you wish for when you're talking about like all the doors opening, because I mean, I'm going to back up 6 months to my last, because when we met is at Spiracare and I'm no longer there. I literally was like at work one day and said, loved my job there, have other things, as we heard in my bio.
Yeah.
I was like, well, if I wasn't here for 10 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
I would have time to do X, Y, and Z. Well, the very next day I go to work, they removed the coaching program.
Oh wow.
And I just sat there and I was like, God, not so quick. Not so quick. I didn't mean it like the next day. Don't pull the freaking rug the next day.
You're like, I think about making a change, and then they're like,
Yeah.
here's the
But I
change.
couldn't be mad, because I literally just laughed, because I mean it's been a huge change, obviously, but I literally asked for it or said it out loud. So it just came a little quicker than I expected.
It's like they say, don't pray for patience. Don't pray
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
God's really eager to give those things to people.
Right. I was like, whoa, he answered that quick. Okay.
Humility. That's the other one. Yeah, don't pray for that.
Right.
You'll find those things real quickly.
Yeah. So since then, I had a coach myself through. I've never lost a job before, so I had to figure that out, like mindfully, what that looked like for me, or like how I felt about it, or like what's next, because I didn't have a next.
Yeah.
But before I worked there, again, had all those things, and I kind of was working on them, so I had to kind of jump back into like, okay, I said I wanted to do all these things. These are all the things. Now is the time. So, since then, again, kind of coaching myself and relying on even you. Everybody that I coached, you guys were just as much an important part of that for me, because just like you, like when I coached you through moving and doing the things that were meant for you in your future, I also, everybody that I coached there, that I coached so many people into like their entrepreneurial
Yeah.
places, or leaving a job they've been at for 20 years, or moving across the country. So many people. I'm like, this is where I have to do this myself, right?
Mm.
Hold myself accountable to kind of walking the talk. So just using what I coach to, foundational, and not getting caught in the emotional kind of roller coaster of like, oh gosh, but values. We talked about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just putting the pieces, like starting my photography, like I kind of had just rebranded my entire business, actually, because coaching, and then I doing photography for the last 20 something years, and then coaching, and then how do those two marry each other into coming up with, and that's where the photo coaching because
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever really thought too much about how photography and coaching are connected until I thought about it.
Until I
And
gave you an interview question prompting. No, just kidding. No.
well, it's been on my mind because it's part of like where I see the things I thought it was funny that you asked me that question, actually, because
Yeah.
that's like how did all of the parts of me come together instead of having them all individualized. And I didn't realize how much photography was a lot of coaching and
Yeah.
mindfulness work. So
And some of it's like the storytelling aspect, right? Like it's like how we portray ourselves, how we help portray other people. And then like you have those candid moments, right? Where it's like there's no, uh standard to this. This is just you're catching an authentic moment. And so in a lot of ways I would think like there's a lot of parallel with how you coach people. Like there's probably people, and I can say I'm one of those people who are like, I'm gonna start off by presenting to you the version of Micah I want you to see. I'm gonna
oh yeah.
answer your questions based on like, oh, I'm somewhat healthy. And I try to be an honest person. I'm not like I'm clearly not a healthy person, like not just like clearly, but at the same time, like through the right coaching and prompting, you get those candid moments that like the truth shines through. And then if you can reflect on it, see it in yourself, you're like, oh, I see that now in myself, that mirror being held up,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. And
Yep.
sometimes it's beautiful. Sometimes it's like, oh, I got this candid shot and I looked really great. And I see how like, I don't know, maybe I'm extrapolating this metaphor further than, but I'm curious if that's how you kind of see parts of like that connection. I'm seeing like I'm creating that at least in my mind.
No, you're absolutely right. And I love that because, one of the questions that you kind of did kind of bring up and mention was my process
Yeah.
of those two things, like coaching and or photography. And this is something that I actually have been really thinking about a lot lately because you're not the first person who's asked me, and I've had to try to think about this over time. Is that the process for me, especially like in coaching, actually not especially in both of them, are so unique to the person
Hmm.
because even I'll say in photography, there's a standard, right? There's rules of photography, like there's rules in art, and you learn the rules so you can break them, right? But in
Hmm.
photography, there's like rules, um, and composition and lighting and all of the technical parts of it. And to be honest with you, like I don't shoot, and I'm not a technical person. I don't have time to be technical. I'm the last attention to detail person in the detail kind of way ever. I recently was just even like acknowledging this or embracing it about my work because someone's like, oh, there's a hair out of place. I'm like, I didn't see that. Or there's
Hmm.
the thing, like the hairbands on the wrist. I'm sorry, it looks like a bracelet. I don't know. Or this is something or other. And, or if the parents are there and they're nitpicking at the kids, like, oh, this isn't perfect. I'm like, do you want a picture of your kid or do you want a picture of their clothes?
Yeah.
Do you want a picture of the background or do you want a picture of your kid? Because it's really about me connecting with somebody else's energy and
Hmm.
dancing with that versus me taking a picture of this perfect scene with that happens to have a person sitting in it. And I think that's really true for coaching too. Is there a system for coaching? Yeah.
Hmm.
There's like an order, like there's a process to get somebody from A to B to C to, of that. But at the end of the day too, it's the person sitting in front of me. I don't know them. And
Yeah.
I don't know who they are. I don't know their past. So it's this energy, like this fluid dance of questions to figure out who you are, what you want, and then also to create that space for you to feel comfortable sharing who you really are. Just like in photography, people show up with the mask of the perfect family photo or the
Hmm.
perfect person that they are. And I'm like, but is that actually you?
Yeah.
Or, a lot of times people with their kids, I have to ask the parents to go away. And I'm not even kidding. And I don't even care anymore. I'm like, I will ask you to leave the room, to walk away, go for a walk because your kid can't be them.
Yeah.
And if you want their true smile, I know how to get it if you allow me to do my job.
That's
Um,
cool.
and I feel the same with coaching. It's interesting because group coaching is a whole thing that I haven't mastered yet, to be honest, because just like large group photography, that's a lot of energy to manage.
Hmm.
And in coaching, how do you, I know people can, but I don't know how to make everyone have such a safe space to drop their masks to really facilitate change in large settings because it's really I guess I thrive on one-on-one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered any question here, but there you go.
No, you're just describing your process, and I love that we're kind of doing it in tandem with like both coaching. That's why I think it's like cool that we got to extrapolate a little bit about like I never thought about photography in relation to lifestyle or health, coaching, and
Mm-hmm.
and working with people. But in the same way, like it takes a deft hand, like you're saying, to be able to manage people and their
Hmm.
emotions.
Yeah.
And in both scenarios, emotions can be high. They're like, I'm trying to get this perfect photo. And you're like, look, like, do you want the perfect photo or do you want the moment captured? And there's a difference, right? Like,
Mhm.
in the same kind of thing. Like, we can like have this very formulaic, here's how we coach and here's how we get the boxes checked that this person is growing or this and that. Or do we get like their actual like authentic reaction to how they are responding to your coaching, how they are making positive movement in their life.
Yeah. Last year there was I actually questioned my coaching a lot when I for a while because I didn't feel like I coached like other people because I didn't go down the list and check these boxes or go through the set of things. Um and then I realized, well, I have a lot of clients. I'm really, really busy. And my clients are doing a lot of good things. And so I just had to kind of backtrack and be like, just because I don't do it the same as other people doesn't mean I'm not doing it well. And same with photos, I think. Um, just kind of a whole interesting concept and really talking about how they both are really, really similar.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, just let's take a step back and can you share with us just a little bit about, your, early part of your life? Like, do you feel like there were some pivotal moments that drew you to do, like to get into this kind of work, both getting into photography? I know like your business started in 1998, but like didn't know like if you're doing lifestyle, um, just like health, conscious coaching, like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like give us kind of
Background.
the background. You don't have to go into the year you're born
And
or
I was typical. But funny thing about that is my photography did start way back. But I won't tell you the whole like because my parents didn't have photos of me when I was a kid.
oh really? Oh
Mhm. I thought I
no.
was adopted. My dad told me I was adopted, and it wasn't until I was like in high school, middle school, that I realized that I looked just like my parents. So it was just a joke. They all got ruined in a flood. So I
Oh,
have no
okay.
baby pictures of me or anything. And I thought something sparked in me. And also, I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer. And I realized that I couldn't be one if I never picked up a camera. Um, but I never did become a National Geographic photographer, but I do. Um, but yeah, so then I just started photographing randomly, the only job I could get. I used to work in Walmart portrait studios, traveling around small towns in Missouri and Kansas, staying in hotel rooms and setting up the portrait studio in the lingerie section or the kids section. Um, I randomly would read Dean Koontz books, photographing little kids. But um, I remember not wanting to engage with the kids. Um, and I was like, I don't know how to use this camera. Don't know how to use this camera. And then I had to do it by myself. And I will never forget the very first kid I ever had to take a picture of. The mom, it was like a 9-month old, and the mom's like, just say, how now, brown cow? And she'll smile. And I'm like, say what? I'm not saying that. But I
Oh
did it
no,
because I didn't
brown
have anything
cow.
else to do. I didn't know, I didn't have another strategy. So I did it, and the little kid lit up and she laughed, and I loved it. And then I loved it. And then next thing I know, the entire town is there for their photos because it was the only traveling there for the weekend. And fell in love with photographing kids, um, and the whole thing. Anyway, did all that. Then I went to work. I photographed kids for a long time, daycares for other companies, and then I realized I could do it myself and enjoy it in a different way. So that was kind of photography, just always there. Lifestyle photography. I used to photograph my friend's kids. She had them when she was younger, and I'd go over there all the time and just photograph them playing in the mud or crying or whatever they were doing on a daily basis. And I totally loved that. So, um, yeah, that's how I kind of started off on my own photography journey. Um, Coaching, oh gosh, it's just like a lifetime of experience, but really didn't add any of it up until I had to go on this journey by myself. I've been divorced for 12 years. I have 3 kids. They were 5, 7, and 9 at the time. And I had a lot of health issues. Like you mentioned, I had Crohn's disease. I drank a lot. I had a whole lot of health issues. I was on depression medication, the whole thing, life depression after divorce, 3 young kids. And I didn't really have a job. I had my photos, but it wasn't like up and going to sustain myself when he left. And so I really was like 3 young kids and kind of jobless. So I had to really like figure out what I was doing. And also try to keep myself alive through my health. At one point I couldn't even stand up from sitting. My hips would give out. So I had a lot of health issues, but through a conversation that I had with my creator, God, he led me to like this nutritional company. Basically, you got to get your health in order nutritionally. And I remember him saying, do this and I will heal you. And that really started a lot of things for me. I just really kept in that whole season of life relying on my relationship with God. It was whatever he told me to do. And every day I'd wake up and say, I am willing, send me whatever you want me to do. And when I would ask that, I would actually start shaking because I'm like, oh God, what did I just ask? What is he going to ask me to do? And he asked me to do a lot of things. And a lot of times it was just, I would get to the point of like almost doing it. And he's like, you don't have to do it. I just want to know if you were willing. And some of the stuff, it was, I had to do it. But it was like parenting my kids, biting my tongue with my ex, like lifestyle changes, right? Eating and stopping alcohol or caffeine, like a whole lot of things. And it was really my journey with God, to be honest with you. And there's not like a program that I have come across that 100% teaches somebody. I think it's everyone's journey with that, like how you hear the Lord's voice and then how you know how to discern, like, and then that process of trusting that and waiting for the outcome and then relying on that again and again and again and making those small changes and those decisions with bigger parts of your life. Okay. So all of that happened. And then I got to a point in my life where I was like, photography is kind of expensive. You always have to buy these cameras. And I loved it. And it was all this thing, but can I do it? Because I'm gonna have to start over. And it was this thing, but what else would I do if I didn't take pictures? And massage therapy always kept coming up and I couldn't put it down. And I was like, this is dumb. It kept coming back to me year after year. So I finally just went to the massage place, the school. And I was like, she's like, why are you here? How much money do you have for the school? And I said, I don't have any money for school. I don't even know why I'm here. I just figured I would show up and see if this is something that I'm supposed to do. And she's like, well, how will you know that? And I said, well, I just came to feel the energy of your school. And if God wants me here, then the finances will come for it. And she just kind of looked at me like, what? I was like, that's all I got for you. Well, when she was laying out the programs for me, she laid out the program and it was like health and wellness coaching. And I was like, what? I didn't know that was a thing. Like that you could go to school for, like in that aspect, right? That wasn't what I was there for. And I read over it. And I was like, there's a process for this. There's
You're
a
like,
process.
I've been doing this thing, but now I get to learn about how.
Right. And like there's steps in a system that you can take people through, not just say, listen to God, you know, and reaching other people. Because obviously if you say listen to God, like people are like, you're a whack and that's not gonna happen or whatever. But I was super interested in it. But it wasn't a standalone program. She said, oh, people don't just take this. People come like use this for continuing education or, you know, if they're a massage therapist or if they're a personal trainer or whatever, just to have some knowledge on how to get people to do things. And I was like, but I just want to take that. She's like, well, we don't just offer that. And I was like, are you sure about that? And it was tied to their personal training program. So anyway, we ran the numbers of the massage therapy. It didn't sit well with me. I came back and I was like, I don't really know if that's what I want to do. And I finally called her back the next day and I said, are you sure I can't just do that other thing? And she said, hold on. And then she said, you know what? They said the way it's worked out that they'll let you. And I was like, okay, well, how much does that cost? And we ran the numbers and we did it all. And I was on my way to Cabo like that weekend. And she said, everything's finalized. You start school on Monday. And I was like, what? Like in 4 days? She was like, yeah. Or I guess it was like, right. Yeah. Cause it was before I went to Cabo. And so I did not know what I was doing. But anyway, I went to school like in person for this. And I learned the process of habit change. And I'm fascinated. I think that I should have probably gone to school for psychology or something to that nature. But I loved it. And I loved that I was learning how to help other people do this, like get from point A to point B. And now I'm just rambling.
No, you're right on track. That's really cool that they were just able to customize it for you. You're able to find your passion and bring the alignment of like something you've already been doing to getting some, literature around it, get some knowledge around it.
Yeah.
And
Hold
so
on.
I'm
So
curious. Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No.
It might
You
be your
go
next
ahead.
question.
No. Well, I was just gonna ask, just like now that you've been doing this for some years, just like what are some of the consistent themes that come up? Like, and you can even share a little bit. Maybe you've had some breakthroughs with people, both in the spiritual alignment with this kind of lifestyle coaching, or even like other experience you've had with people who were irreligious or not. Like you said, anytime people focus on their body and their connection to it, I feel like it inherently becomes a spiritual, whether they admit it or not. You know what I mean? They don't have to tie it to a deity. They may not tie it to a Christianity or a religion per se, but
Right.
like I'm one of those agnostic, fallen from grace kind of people. But meeting with you felt very sacred and spiritual, of like helping me hone in and think about, like I said, even just my rituals of reading and my meditation and practice. And so I guess what are some like the consistent themes you have for both those kind of pairs of groups, and how do you help folks overcome those challenges and break some of those molds or habits, through what you learned?
Yeah. I'm going to backtrack one step and say, because I went to that school, I have never written a resume in my life, but we had to as part of the school. And I didn't know how to do it. So I had to pay a lot of money to have some like help with it just for a class assignment. So I decided to submit it randomly. That's how I got the job at Spire Care, just so you know.
Oh, nice.
And I had to flip my whole entire life upside down because I never worked for anybody. I've never had a 9 to 5 before, ever, besides that job.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So I had to put some of my own stuff down in order to accommodate that. And then the world shut down. And then here I am coaching people on life changes during a world pandemic. Anyway.
I imagine that was chaos.
To say the least, it was a little bit, but threw me in there. It was great. All the things. All I can say is I was clearly meant to be there because, yeah. So I had a whole world of every walk of life, as you can imagine, working down at Crossroads. And what I found was working in a medical office, people were referred to me, probably much like you, with like health conditions or needing to increase health habits, right? A lot of times you go to the doctor and they say, oh, you might be pre-diabetic, or you need to exercise and eat better, right? Well, then they leave. Like, what does that even mean? Exercise and eat better. or hey, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're going to have some serious health issues.
Mm.
Um, but in that care model, they said, but now we have this person to help you figure out how to do that, right? So then you show up in my office, and it didn't matter what spectrum of my patients' lifestyles were on. They all came for something, right? They all came there for
Mhm.
something. And a lot of them are like, I mean, 90% of people were in there for weight loss. I won't lie. Or like some chronic condition concern
Sure.
with weight loss. Because weight does affect every other health condition that you could be in there for.
Right.
However, so I would say health, or I'm gonna ride fine on this. I'm gonna say ADHD,
Mhm.
anxiety, stress, and weight. Probably a majority of what I coached on, or let me say this, what they came to me for.
Yeah.
um, but what I found is when I start asking questions, and I borderline on saying the ADHD, because what I found was underneath it all, people really just didn't know who they were at a
Mm.
core level. And I mean, it took me several years of asking these questions and really saying, or like diving in deeper to what their challenges were. And again, when I ask you, hey, well, what are your core values? Okay.
Mhm.
I would guess 90% of the people looked at me with a blank face. And then they might throw off faith, family, my kids. Not that those are not the right answers,
Sure.
but they didn't think about it really, you know. And a lot of times I would get the question of what is a value, could you give me an example? And I really acknowledge that we have a whole entire society that is just spinning and making fly by the seat of their pants choices based
Mm.
on what they think they should do, or what their parents think they should do, or what society thinks they should do. And they
Right.
really don't have a solid foundation within themselves of who they are or what works for them specifically. And then they wonder why they feel so overwhelmed or stressed or can't stick to X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Um, so again, it didn't matter who was in my office. I started just working with that. Um, and I think by definition, I think that I may have changed to a life coach in that moment, because I was coaching more about foundational life skill, like life, than health and wellness, although it's all interconnected. But I felt like if we don't know who I am, how can I make decisions that align with myself?
Yeah, I thought you did a really good job about, like, sussing that out. For me, like, um, because I grew up in a family that there was a lot of values-oriented lifestyle, like, things, but we didn't necessarily make the connection to our bodies or to our health, and I thought you did a really good job, like, you know it was always, like, faith and community, and that always just, well, now we're all just eating a bunch of fried garbage food at the potlucks at church,
Mhm.
you know?
Right.
You
Right.
know, like, it's all good things, but, like, it wasn't necessarily equated to, being interconnected with my alignment in my body, and so I remember just us talking about, like, some of my core values I think I shared with you were, like, or at least you helped me kind of tease out, were, like, safety and security was a big thing
Mhm.
because I was about to go through this whole transition and was like, I'm feeling that loss of, that, but that's like something that is, it's important to me because I have a lot
Yep.
of family and friends I'm about to leave behind. And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
so how do we find safety and security in ourselves? How do
Right.
we nurture ourselves through this kind of transition? And that might be, you know, setting up barriers or plans that, like, hey, I'm gonna make these steps to feel secure, like I was saving money, and so that was some of my, like, goals I shared with you, was like,
Mhm.
want to feel like I had some kind of cushion before I moved. But then, like, we were talking too just about, um just like some aspects of, like, you know feeling like that, sense of like, love and connection with other people. Well, how do you find that where you're moving? And it's not just like bar friends or smoking buds,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
those are like folks that like, how are you going to find that sense of community and love that you need from other people, that energy you need from other
Mhm.
people, but they aren't going to pull you into the lifestyle that you're so commonly in circles with. Not that my friends in Kansas City were all smokers and drinkers, mom and dad, but many of them were, and most of them would say I was probably the culprit, you know.
Mhm.
But that's the thing, like you realize, like, okay, while other people move on or making healthier lifestyle changes, sometimes it's like, oh, I just keep running the excuses in my head that, like you said, during the pandemic, and like what you probably witnessed with the droves of people who came through your door, it's like suddenly everybody has the mirror held up to them and they're in the pandemic, like, oh shit, I have a lot of unhealthy patterns. What am I doing with my life? And you had to like make that step to help them connect. Okay, well, what are your values?
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
pandemic really highlighted that, I think, because I don't think it obviously affected people in so many different ways, but I don't know how like I don't know that people actually acknowledge like the psychological the lack of identity
Hmm.
that really shined in that because people lost their jobs. Um, you know, they lost a lot of things, but who am I when all of those things are stripped away? And I
Hmm.
think that's what really rocked people because they didn't know, right? If we don't know who I am, if I'm only a mom, if I'm only a postman, if I'm whatever it is that you are, and all of a sudden that's ripped away, right?
Hmm.
Or what if I mean, everything in your life gets ripped away in a tornado and you're standing there, like, and I can relate it back to, my anchor, right? It's kind of like that anchor in a storm, right? What's anchoring you where everything in your life could be swirling around. And instead of getting in the tornado and swirling with it, if I don't know who I am, that's what's going to
Hmm.
happen. I'm going to be spit out wherever. But when I know who I am and what I stand for, what I believe, what my values are, I can stand here regardless of what's going on in my environment and still stand solid in who I am. And I don't think that a lot of people, again, well, I know that because I coach so many, like they don't know who they are and without their identity. And I think even that, like with me and all of my jobs, like it's a weird question. What do you do? I don't know. I mean, I do know, but am I a photographer? Am I a coach? I mean, I am all these things, and it's really an identity thing, and it's it's such a powerful thing that I think was missed, but I that's where I felt, and I still feel like in my coaching is where I not only love, it makes my heart beat fast to help people make those connections with themselves because I think it really sets a firm foundation to move forward in life when you know that and you have that solid rock to stand on, um, regardless of what's happened before. And I think when I lost my job, I had to really rely on that. Like, what would I coach somebody? Right?
Hmm.
What would I go back? But I know my values, and I really did stand on that. And when I'm overwhelmed, what's missing? What are my values that I'm ignoring or that aren't in place, or like, and understanding that I can't maybe put them all into practice now, but can I touch on a little bit of them? They don't all have to be 100%, or which ones are really relevant now, which ones are overflowing, which ones are absent. Um,
Yeah.
but if I didn't know that about myself, I'm pretty sure I would be in a different state right now. Not in the world, but in a mental state.
You're like, I would have picked up and moved the hell out of
Well, I can't say. I
me
I
and the
lost my
kids are
brain,
going somewhere
sure.
else.
Yes. I mean, Maine is still calling my name. I will be there one day, but
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, my friend Scott here, he loves Maine. He talks. I've never been, but he's got a whole romanticism with it too.
it
So,
is. Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's definitely a thing.
well, hopefully, wherever your steps in life take you, it ends you up in Maine. It sounds like
Yeah.
get you some clam chowder
Oh
out
my
there.
gosh.
I'm just gonna make up. I don't know the cliches. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like Kansas City and barbecue or something. Just like, oh, don't they just
Maybe
eat
lobster.
fish? Don't
Lobster.
they
Lobster.
eat fish out there?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool though, and
Um,
that's a beautiful thing to have to like sit with yourself and process. Like, hey, I have all these tools in my toolbox, but even like you said, like And I'm sure you've been in a good practice state of mind over the years, like even when you were stable and work was fine or whatever, and they weren't cutting a whole program and letting a bunch of people go,
Yeah.
you're probably still using those elements. But then when something like that thrusts upon you, it's like, oh God, it's like you have to kind of remember which tools you have like at your disposal to kind of
Mhm.
self-manage, you know, your daily you know like how you're processing things because there is a loss, and that is like I dealt with that when I first moved here to Asheville. I thought I was going to have a job, I'd work remotely. That was part of my confidence in being able to move, and that boss had given me 3 months. Initially we were going to do a trial period, and then I got here, and then within like it hadn't even been a week and a half, he decided, I've changed my mind.
Oh my
I And so then now I'm like hunting for an apartment. Now I'm hunting for a new job.
Mhm.
I only have so much savings
Mhm.
and I'm like, am I about to epically fail and just have to like pack up all my shit and go back to Kansas City and live with my brother or live with my parents? Like, God damn it, I'm 34 years old. I told myself, and then that was just like those like sink or swim moments. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I gotta like whatever toolbox things I have at my disposal, everything I've learned about who I am, and like you said, leaning on those anchors of
Mhm.
like, all right, Micah, like there's no running home or running to do this or that. Like I have to find that stability in myself that it's either sink or swim. I gotta like, just like all these life rafts are gone. They're gone, Micah. It's like, all right,
Mhm.
here's the life lesson I'm a part of. And like you said, there's something very sacred and attuning with yourself to step into those shadows, and to like face yourself, face like and like not always like feeling like you have all your shit together, but then you're like, oh, but man, I'm doing actually pretty well, and I'm sure you've had some
Mhm.
moments like that, some kind of like moments of like just perking up, like, I don't know. For me, it was like it could be from the difference between how I felt from like morning to lunchtime. Like I'd wake up like, oh, the day's gonna be great. I'm gonna apply for jobs. I'm gonna do things. And by lunchtime, I'm like, fuck, am I gonna have to move home? Is this all just actually about to go to shit? And I'm gonna have to like,
My
where's my family? Where's my is my dog okay? Should I just like give up? And then like by dinner time, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fine. I'm back to being okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a roller coaster, but if you also didn't have some sort of sense about yourself, that roller coaster might not ever end, right? It might have
Sure.
stayed in the lunchtime Micah. Right?
The lunchtime Micah. Yeah, that was usually about like, if you just ate some food, like, okay,
Ooh.
okay, I'm feeling better
Mhm.
now.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's how much you realize, like, yeah, how much of our mental health and everything is so tied to our physical rhythms of life. And if I treat myself like garbage, my thoughts tend to feel like my um lack of self-awareness or whatever continues to perpetuate because I'm not taking care of myself. And so, yeah, so like what have been some of your tools that you've been like doing to take care of yourself? I know I follow you on social media, so I'm seeing, you're in the gym, you're doing some kind of personal training now. Is that what I'm
Yeah, so funny when said when I was in school or like went to school, they had that the coaching tied to personal training. I was like, no, I have no interest in being a personal trainer. Um, but that fell kind of in my lap as well. Um, a friend of mine owns a private gym, and she's a personal trainer, and it's growing. So she was hiring. She needed more help, and I reached out to her. Now I've gone to the gym forever. I've always gone to the gym. Not always. One of my huge life transition changes again. Um, Back years ago, I would say I've never been a morning person in my entire life. Like morning isn't me. Like that's not a thing. And always night, couldn't get up. And one day, and I asked this to a lot of my coaching clients, like, who told you that? Right? Well, I'm not a morning
Hmm.
person. Well, who told you that? Like, right? Challenging your belief systems. And I was like, dang, who did tell me that? And I was like, why am I not a morning person? And so that was years ago, but that kind of transitioned to me being a morning person, going to the gym, meeting this trainer. So she trained me forever, but not as a personal trainer. I just took her classes. So anyway, I reached out to her and she said, I would love for you to apply. And I was like, okay, great. So yeah, I am now a certified personal trainer. And
Let's
I train at her
go.
gym. about 20 hours a week. And I love that because one of my core values is health. So it really holds me accountable. So that's one of my systems, right? You have to find systems and the things that align with your values to hold you accountable for them, right? So me being a personal trainer at her gym holds me accountable to my own fitness journey and my own physical health journey, because I'm not going to go be a personal trainer and not do the things. Like that's not who I am.
Sure.
So so I do that. Also, again, work out on the side. But in that transition, because my routine was set, 5 a.m. gym every day. I go to the gym or I get up at the same time every day. That's also another thing that
Hmm.
holds you accountable. I get up at the same time every day, whether I go to the gym or I have a day off. My weekend times are slightly different. But what I, so training for her upset that. I felt like now I'm getting in a routine, but now I can't go to the gym and work out at 5 a.m. I have to train someone else. I got to show up mentally. I got to show up and do this thing because I have to help other people. And I started off getting a little irritated about it because I was like, this is ruining my system.
Your personal routine.
My
Yeah.
personal routine was very much like off. And I struggled with it for a while. And I was like, okay, what would I say? And I really had to coach myself that it's not off. Like, where, instead of saying I can't work out now, right? Where can I work out? Where are those times? And just adjusting the times that I did it. So again, it's not, everything is never set in stone across the board in habit change. Even in physical activity, so many people are like, oh, I quit in the winter. Well, what did you do in the summer? I ran outside. Well, are you going to run outside when it's snowing and 30 degrees outside? If the answer is no, you didn't quit. You just didn't adjust what you do, right? So a lot of habits are seasonal.
Yeah.
And people don't acknowledge that. They just figure, well, it got cold, so I quit. Well, you just failed to plan for the cold. So you either need to put more clothes on and go run outside, or maybe you need to find an indoor place to run for the winter, or get an elliptical, or whatever it is.
Sure.
But so, yeah, just again, going back to my value system, and discipline, is something that I value. And I realized that that was upsetting my disciplines. And for a while, I just wasn't, when I started, I didn't work out. And then I was like, no, these are the things. On Wednesdays, I don't train there, so I don't have to get up. I don't have to get up at 4:30. I still get up at 4:30 and I go to the gym. Like the discipline part is being consistent in my routines, right? Still going to bed on time. Still doing the things. Nature and being around water, being in the woods, the trees are something that grounds my soul. Like,
Yeah.
it is my place to go and be, but also to release a lot of other people's energies, release what I'm holding on to that's not meant for me. I can just go out there and give it away.
The trees can hold it.
They can
Yeah.
hold it. I definitely don't need to. And it also is a place where it reminds me of my systems, because if you watch a squirrel or just a flower, like, it teaches you so much about the interconnectedness of life as a whole, and like their systems
Yeah.
and how it relates to us. And another reason why I love Maine is because I feel like the whole state operates in flow with nature, but that's a whole nother thing. um
That's
but it really,
beautiful.
yeah, it's just it's where I stay in flow. And then I try to keep, I try to watch the sunrise and sunset every day to keep my rhythms the same with nature. um uh Spirituality slash religion, um to me they're kind of interconnected in a very real way, and also have some separateness to them. But am I aligning my decisions with my relationship with the Lord? If I'm not, then I'm off.
Hmm.
Right? Am I really trusting him? Like when I ask, so I guess that is just holding myself accountable to, am I operating in alignment with who I am, and then challenging myself. Growth is something else that I value, and sometimes that one overflows. Sometimes I'm so engulfed in growth that I can't breathe because I'm like, stop, I can't grow anymore right now. I need to pause. uh, which is all good, and I put myself in situations on purpose, just like being a personal trainer. Like I was like, oh, but I get to see another side of health, and from a different perspective, a different side of coaching from a different perspective. um Being in the room and be an expert in coaching multiple people in a way. So that was a whole growth thing, but putting myself in very uncomfortable situations, um in to grow, I guess, on
Yeah.
purpose. Maybe something I wouldn't have known before, but instead of shying away from it, I look forward to it now, knowing that it's part of who I am.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like there's so many people you've coached or walked through in life, and you realize that, they don't A, know what their values are, but B, they're stuck into a life cycle of just like never having that introspection period. And like it's really sad. And like in the day of the digital age we live in, like how much people just, during the pandemic just latched on to whatever the thing was, like the social world, or just losing themselves to the ether sphere, as I call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that all internet or whatever is bad. We're obviously recording this, it'll go
Right.
into the interwebs, but
Right.
just like the idea that what you were just touching on, the idea that when people intentionally pursue like paths of introspection, you find yourself A, asking hard questions, and then B, like when those when you know the answer to it, you're like, okay, now I need to like make a decision to put myself in a hard place.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that like not like the self-sabotaging kind of hard place, but like you're saying, like that growth pattern,
Mm-hmm.
that growth highway that you're like, okay, I need to like, and that's how I knew like me moving was like, I don't know what will come of this. It might be terrible and I'll be back in a year. It might be amazing and I grow a lot from it. And I just knew that, is this going to be tough for me, both mentally, spiritually, all of the above? And will I grow from that experience? I think I will. And try to like, I don't know. Like I just think like a lot of people can be it's very easy to just be stagnant, and like, how many people's parents or people the generations of like, I've been at the same place for 40 years and this is
Mm-hmm.
my mindset and I never change how I approach this or how I argue or how I love, like we just never challenge ourselves to think critically about something. And not to say like we're perfect or like we're high and mighty than everyone else. We found the secret sauce or whatever, but I think just the very aspect of like you're saying, like who told you that? And just challenging yourself, like, wait, like how have I been just following a formulaic pattern based on a narrative I've told myself, and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, does this really have to be this way, or can I change the whole narrative altogether? Can I like change from living in Kansas City and that whoever that Micah version is that lived there, and who's the Micah that's going to emerge here?
Yeah.
And do I have to let the narrative follow me, or can it be, both and take with, but also something different?
I
That's
love that you
my
brought up the and. Can it be and? Why does it and or? And that's a whole lot of times when I helped people with their value systems, it gave them the opportunity and permission to use and instead of or. Um, in terms of even setting boundaries or saying, if we're always saying yes to somebody else and no to ourselves, which I found a lot,
hmm,
when we know our value system, we can operate within an and. So I can choose me and you instead of
yeah,
me or you or me, right?
hmm,
Um, and yeah, I feel like that offers a lot of freedom in reducing like guilt and shame on choosing habits for ourselves or making decisions that align with what we need for ourselves.
Yeah, and maybe what I was saying a little bit ago was like maybe that sounds more trying to make people feel guilty or like you don't think critically about life or whatever, but just more like I guess trying to just like I don't know. In some ways I do feel like as culture we have to like figure out a way to wake ourselves up because I do feel like a lot of us are just sleepwalking through life.
That's a
And
whole nother
like
podcast.
that is a whole other podcast. And yeah, and so like I love that you stay connected to nature. And for me, I think that's like some of the biggest like elements of like my spiritual connectedness that have come with me. Like even though I've done a lot of faith and religion deconstruction, a lot of the reconstruction that has come in place, and like part of my intentional move out here was to build community, but it was to see that you know um, there's an element of are interconnected with all the mountains and all this stuff that I'd never gotten to experience before that I needed to see a new face of God, so to speak. And they call it God's country out here.
Yeah.
And I needed to see that new face of it. And so I take Rayla down to the river and take her on hikes. And it's a new part of our daily rhythm that, like you said, helps us branch out of ourselves a little bit and see beyond just the schematics that life would have us follow as human
Yeah.
beings.
I feel like too being out in nature is just you, right? Like when we're in our house, we have everything at our disposal we need to survive, but when we're out there, we have nothing.
Yep.
And it makes you think a little bit more about yourself in a different kind of way to connect to yourself. Which, real quick, because I know time is a thing. Um, my BondFire things that we kind of
Yeah.
wrote in my bio. I'm just going to bring it up real quick because it's kind of has to do with the whole nature thing. Because I walk a lot in nature, um, and just the whole fire is all about like transformation and whatever. And again, honestly, it started off as a whole nother way for me to stay connected, accountable to being connected to nature because I have to collect the ingredients for the fires.
Yeah.
So they're like, I go on the walks to get the ingredients to make them, and then think about what people do around a bonfire. What it represents. Like even if you're sitting there by yourself, you can connect to yourself, being present there. You can sitting with a group of friends around a fire. You can enjoy the outside, connect with the outside more, and connect just with the ingredients with the fire because it's all from the earth. But so they're just little portable campfires. Like you can take it wherever. It's going to burn for like 4 hours. But then I took it a little bit further and kind of now I have that, but then I kind of package it as a fire ritual, right? To bring a little bit more mindfulness to it. So
Yeah.
now they have like journals with them and crystals and like a little meditation thing. So you can like, if you're on a self-love journey, you can write affirmations and rip them off and like burn them,
That's
affirm
really
them to
cool.
the universe. Or if you're on a healing journey, you can like write your trauma, like whatever you're wanting to release, and stuff. And so I kind of married it to like a mindfulness practice and just again everything I do I try to bring it back to like how it's connected. Like I think everything I do is about connection in some way.
That's beautiful. And it's Bond Fire, like
Yes. Yeah.
James Bond, but
Right. Or bond, right?
community bond,
Yes.
Bonfire. I know. I'm just
Yes.
being
Yeah.
cheeky. Um,
On purpose.
I'm just being cheeky on purpose. Jess, can you share like is there a place where people can order that? Is that like
Bond bondfirekc.com.
oh, that's beautiful. Well, Jess, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing a little bit about who you are. Just feel free, please, like share like for all the marketing reasons. If there's any, I mean, you've already shared bondfirekc.com,
Yeah.
correct? And then if anything else like social media, just wherever people can find you online if they like to learn more or follow your journey.
Yeah. My photo and coaching business is the Tin Rough Studio .com. And yeah, it's the Tin Rough Studio on Facebook, Instagram.com. And yeah, that would be where I am the most. So
Well, very cool. Well,
the,
thanks
the,
again for being a part of this and being open and sharing about everything. And yeah, it's been a real treat. And
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's kind of, again, a little bit interesting role reversal because I end up not having like talked to you in a minute. I just like want to go on and have so many conversations.
now I want to see your notes now. I want to see your strategy, your plan over the next 2 weeks. No, I'm just kidding. I want to hear how it's connected to your values, Jess.
Well, I could answer some of those questions for you, but
Well, it'll be episode 2. It'll be in the next one.
yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
thanks y'all for being here. Until next time. Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. And check out my YouTube channel and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll see you next time.
You are now re-entering the normal world.